This is the Stick in the Mud podcast, episode 5. Today, we'll be talking about quests. Hey everyone, welcome to the Stick in the Mud podcast. As always, I'm your host, Tark. If this is your first time listening, thanks for giving us a shot. Repeat listeners, thanks for tuning in again. The Stick in the Mud podcast is released once a week on Wednesdays, and notes for the show can be found at www.stickinthemudpodcast.com. You can find us on iTunes and Google Play Music as Stick in the Mud Podcast, and follow us on Twitter at Stick in the Mud Podcast. All the links are in the show notes, so let's dig in and talk about quests. So, first off, what is a quest? In literature, movies, everything else, quests are the search for something. Something can be as simple as finding 10 rats, killing them, and giving them back to the guy who asked you for some dead rats. Or it can be something as complicated as going on an adventure through the demon and undead-infested keep of Lord Tacos, defeating fiendish traps and his countless hordes to save the soul of your good-for-nothing father, who you still love because, well, he's your father. Whether of minor or major scope, quests are something beyond the grind of, I'm just going to sit and kill 65,340,285 boars until I reach maximum level. And the nice thing about quests is they can either be automated, or they can be run by game administrators or even other players, depending on the game. Automated quests tend to be always on and available, and while the rewards do vary from game to game, they're generally not super impactful. Exceptions, however, do exist. These tend to be the collect 10 rats, go kill that one guy, go to this room and pick something up sort of things. Administrator and player run quests obviously happen when said player or administrator is around. Now, that can provide issues for players depending on, well, since I'm a West Coast guy, for instance, when I played on Listernia, I often ran into the fact that since I played, well, in the evening West Coast time, that was usually well past the time that East Coasters went to bed. Since the game had a large evening East Coast population, more often than not, events got run during those times when there was a peak amount of players around. That didn't bother me too much because, well, I'm not the sort to want to participate in giant world-altering events anyways. But, for people that do get off on that and do enjoy that sort of thing, it does become pretty tough when you feel like, well, I never, ever get to make my mark on the universe because, well, I'm not around. So the administrator-run quests do kind of tend to be the world-altering, make your mark on the universe, advance the plot of the game in some way sort of quests. And, those, again, are the ones where you'll typically, go father soul-searching. So the big thing, then, in my book is, well, why should you quest? Now, in most games, it forces you to get to know areas and where to find mobs, items, hidden little places and side areas. And while the rewards can vary game by game, the majority do at least provide experience, usually currency in that game. Some provide points that can be used for gear or stats increasing. Others will provide actual gear themselves, or there's other rewards that have a tangible effect. I know one game allowed you to find a helmet that will let you listen to tells, which are direct between player-to-player private messages, if you're in the same room as one person receiving them. And another big reason why people like to do quests is for the challenge. Some of the more complicated quests require interesting logic to find the next step, while others put you under a strict time limit that force you to demonstrate how good you are at the game. Others will put you in conflict with other players, which, well, again, will force you to demonstrate your skill. So now we come to, well, kind of the downside of quests. Like I mentioned before, when you're talking about player or administrator run quests, one of the big issues you run into is just people having the same availability. If, again, you're a West Coast player and the folks running stuff are East Coast or even European time, well, odds are, unless you have a very interesting schedule or don't have to be at work or school that day, you're probably not going to get to participate unless it's some sort of a 24-hour event. The other thing that tends to happen with administrator-run quests, especially on games that have larger populations, is that you have massive hordes of people surrounding the quest giver, for lack of a better way to put it, it's very easy to be drowned out or not really have much of an impact because, well, just like in real life, when you've got 5, 10, 15 people all talking at once, you can hardly, think, let alone try and present, an interesting story or a good quest. With automated quests, one of the big issues is, well, what if it stops working? I've played a couple of games now where, without direct administrator involvement, some quests just are not completable. The first time that they were completed, well, you had the administrator who typically made the quest right there on hand to provide hints and, make sure the bugs are, well, squashed at the time, but not really taken care of later on. The other issue with automated quests is normally once you've done some a couple of times, there's not really any challenge anymore. And then the interesting thing is that in most games, players are not allowed to share quest information. Now, if you weren't there when the quest was released, then it becomes very tough figuring out how to solve it if you don't have those insights that the people who were there the first time were given, again, by the folks who wrote said quest. So that's going to go ahead and do it for the episode today. I do apologize for it being short. I'm still getting over eating a little rare chicken. With that all being said, I would just like to thank Opie over at funcity.org for taking care of the hosting aspect of this podcast. So, have yourselves a good day, and remember, always, always, always eat fully cooked, not rare, chicken.